Hello and good day. In this video, I will be assessing 4 practitioners with my particular field in mind, that is, the historical costuming community. Each maker that I will be examining uses similar research methods and making techniques in the field of costuming, but deviates slightly on historical accuracy in their own way. The first 2 use a more modern sewing method approach, whereas the other 2 use a more historical-based approach. They all can be related to my field of work, whether that's in theater or the historical implications being involved. First, I'll be going over the practitioners and their field of work. Then I will talk about the financial stability of a home costume maker, and finally go into the performing arts implications this can have. The first 2 makers are costume makers and have more of a theatrical base on their work. Whilst both have their own style and making process, they all seem to embrace the more creative side of costume making. Marika of Enchanted Rose Costumes and Angela Clayton, both on YouTube, are the first 2 that I will be looking into. Both of them make historical costumes and dress. For the most part, however, they do not always stick to historical conventions. They use historical reference of the time period they are working in, but each puts their own little flair into the costumes they make. Clayton's 1630s Christmas gown is based on historical garments of the time, but she uses embellishments not accurate to that period, and states this: "The actual existence of things is completely irrelevant when you're the one making something. That's the joy of creating something." The same goes with Marika. Her gown that she made for Costume College a few years back was beautiful, and she used excellent garment patterns to make it. The fabric choice and the embellishments, however, were not. Their contributions to the costuming community are such that they advocate for a more creative license when making costumes. Clayton and Marika use historical reference and theatrical techniques to make brilliant costumes and dress. Each of them brings to light the techniques of the past and present and use their knowledge to make beautiful things. The implications of sharing their work on social media is important as well. They're all about showing the creative process and making of dress in their videos, which leads right into my next makers, Bernadette and Cathy. Now, I've talked a lot about these 2 for a good reason. Both bring a plethora of knowledge to the historical accuracy side of costuming. Banner is all about historical practice and using experimental archaeology, which is what I will be using in my approach to this dissertation, to reconstruct past fashions. Her most notorious work to date is that of her Charles Worth-inspired gown. She spent months researching the underpinnings and what was needed to get the correct shape, and had to figure out how the top of the bodice would drape, as there was no pattern for it, thus bringing in the experimental side of her making process. She uses what she knows from her theater days on Broadway and her historical research today to figure out what might have been used to make the past period fashion clothing. The same goes with Hayes's peacock dress. She's using historical patterns to make her gown and is taking her time to understand the implications of every garment piece. In a video, Hayes states this: "The reason that I do this, and the reason that I'm able to find the time to do this, is because it's not about making clothes. From the corset to the bust improver to the hip pad, it's all about understanding the clothes and getting to slow down and take the time needed to make a beautiful garment and not just another costume." Which is what most commercial patterns are trying to do for the costume side. They want fast production of garments, so they might skip out on the finer details of things just to make an easy pattern for the home sewer. Both Banner and Hay show us in their videos content how things might have been done and what they can do to replicate techniques for a broader audience. I say replicate rather than imitate, as both try to get the most historical shape of the gowns and garments they make. But with taking the time and sourcing the proper materials, it might be hard on the bank account, and the financial stipulations come into play. Financially and economically, all of these practitioners are working from home and not for a company or workshop. This means that they can source materials that are more eco-friendly, like natural fiber fabrics, tongue twister, such as linens, cottons, silks, and wools. This in turn, though, can be hurtful to the creative process or making of said garments, as the prices tend to be extremely high for the home sewer, especially if you have a low-paying job. Good quality historical pieces usually will come more due to the fabrics and the time needed to make them, i.e. Bernadette's heraldic 15th century gown, link in the description. This is why she, Banner, usually makes about 4 costumes or garments a year. Time and money play a big factor in costuming. The same goes for any other person in the costuming community working from home. A big project can take months, if not years, i.e., Hayes' peacock gown, and the financing has to come from somewhere. This can be harmful or helpful depending on how you look at it. Harmful as you have to budget frugally on the costumes that you make, but helpful for a new sewer who wants to get started and can use lesser quality materials for practice. It's all in perspective. It's all in perspective though. But with the finances out of the way, what are the implications to the theater community? All of these makers are part of the performing arts, but in a different way. They do not partake in the theatrical side of things as much, but rather with their social media and YouTube channels, and with them making strides in the community, it's bringing home costuming and sewing center stage. They're all about making and being creative. This can get younger people to get excited about sewing, making, and theater in general. Their contributions to teaching the history of sewing and making videos to sew along videos with them is ingenious. It can work to help up-and-coming makers to see different aspects of sewing as well as making accessible to all on YouTube. Theaters now are starting to look for more freelance workers than are starting to look for more freelance workers, and the costume shops are dwindling down in numbers. So that is a downside, but it can also be an upside for the makers that I have listed, as well as others in the same position. If you can get work outside of just home sewing and making videos, that can increase your chances to get more jobs in the theater side, and making money can be a little bit easier, and you can continue to live and love the work that you do. Clayton, Marika, Banner, and Hayes' work are all unique in their making process, and whilst not everything can be done accurate to the history, they all use similar research methods and approach things differently, but come to the same conclusion one way or another. This is in value to me as a similar maker to use their knowledge to further my work. I heavily rely on Banner and Hay and other historical costumers for the historical side of sewing for their techniques and making process. I usually don't consider the theatrical side as much anymore, but with Clayton's quote, as I stated earlier, it is wise to always remember that I'm the one making it, and if something's not accurate, it won't matter because I'm the one creating it. And to remember that it is okay to embrace the non-historical side of materials too. We can't be 100% accurate in our making, but we can try our best. And I'm sure that if the materials today were available to the people from the past, they would have used it as well. Thank you for listening. Everything will be linked down in the description for all the makers that I've listed, as well as a few others that I will be referencing in my dissertation later on. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe if you want to see my making process of my Victorian gown for my Anne Curry project. That will be linked down below as well as in the iCard. If you want to stay tuned, make sure to hit that subscribe bell. Make sure to hit the subscribe button and click the bell for notifications when I make new videos. They should be starting up pretty soon. I'm going to be working on my dissertation in the next couple of weeks, and videos will slowly come out on the making process and the documentation of my dissertation work. Again, thanks for watching. Have a good day.